Hey there folks, welcome to this video, and here I'm going to be talking about the world of sim racing, and also the real world of motorsport. Now, motorsport's forced hiatus is almost coming to a close. Some racing series are getting back up and running, but what I want to talk about in this video, very briefly, is a litany of different controversial incidents, some of which much more severe than others, that have been going on over these past couple of months. And it's going to be talking about a variety of different platforms, a variety of different competitions, and a variety of different incidents. Like I said, some much more severe than others. It includes cheating, it includes racism, and it includes just general unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, I want to start off by saying, if you want to hear about me talking more about this first incident, which is Daniel Apt's exclusion from the Racer Time Race at Berlin for getting a ringer driver, you can check out my video in the description section down below. But at the same time, him getting a ringer driver, that is unsportsmanlike, and he's been fined 10,000 euros for it. The person who was his ringer ended up being barred from doing any more of the Racer Home Challenge, which I think is a bit of a shame, and I think is a bit harsh. Should certainly be not allowed to compete in the next race, though I believe there are 2 races as a double header next week to round it off. So at the same time, the ban from the Racer Home Challenge isn't as extreme a punishment as it may sound. And that's probably the case. Apt wasn't sportsmanlike there. Jimmy Broadbent, for example, said it just goes to show how fragile some racing drivers' egos are. But it's something that should be frowned upon, and he should be shamed for it, and he rightly has been. Otherwise, there have been incidents of rage quitting, for example. I mean, we saw Bubba Wallace in NASCAR rage quitting after being wrecked, and then saying, oh, it's just a game, and then Blue Emu, his sponsor, dropping him, saying, oh, we believe in winners, not quitters. It was ironic then that Blue Emu's banner, when NASCAR got back racing again, ended up quitting partway through the race. But at the same time, the damage had already been done, both to the banner and to Wallace. Now, I don't necessarily believe that he should have lost sponsorship over it. It should have been frowned upon, and in some cases, sponsors and teams should be questioning whether or not they want to sponsor somebody who favours their own ego over entertainment and putting on a show for the fans. But I don't believe people should be losing their sponsorship over that kind of sole incident. It should be if it becomes a trend, and for example, if we get back to real world racing and you see people doing that, then commitment should be called into question. For example, when Lando Norris quits because of issues in F1 eSports, I go, well, that's a shame. Of course, he doesn't then have an outburst online about it, but it's still, well, a massive shame. But I feel like Wallace got quite a harsh punishment there, whereas someone like Pagenaud got away quite lightly for the I'm gonna wreck Lando. And of course, Santino Ferrucci proved untouchable for, well, being Santino Ferrucci, causing a wreck at the line, and then being a total Santino Ferrucci about it, saying, it's just for fun, it was a lot of fun, and then being another Santino Ferrucci in lying about the reason when being interviewed. And I want to pull in a bit of a contrast here. It's somewhat a false equivalency because of the severity of both incidents, but I want to compare what Santino Ferrucci has done both in the simulator and in his real-world career to what happened regarding Kyle Larson. Now, Kyle Larson lost his drive because he said a slur in a live stream in a sim racing event. Now, I've heard people saying, but if he said it in actual NASCAR, it wouldn't have been broadcast. I believe you can still pick up the radio frequencies and team radio and team chatter on radios when you're at the actual NASCAR track. And I believe if it's being broadcast at all, even if it's over a radio and there becomes a controversy because of it, somebody should lose their drive. Especially if you're someone like Larson, who has been publicly known for having taken like anti-racism pledges. If you're saying a slur, and especially the slur that Larson did, you should lose a drive. And it should call your career into question. But at the same time, I get annoyed because people like Santino Ferrucci could probably do the same thing and get away with it. Because of who he is. Now, that is something that can be a bit complicated because it questions, well, are we rating somebody for their behaviour off track or on track, whereas we're not really countering it with their talent? These people are supposed to be role models. Sure, they're athletes. Sure, in this kind of area of sim racing, they're largely doing entertainment, but they should still be considered role models. So saying a slur, especially that kind of slur, should be a career ender. And it should be something that costs them their drive. That should be something that people should lose their sponsorship over. Rage quitting? Probably not. Rage quitting should call into question, but it shouldn't directly cost them sponsorships or drives. And this is the bit where I get a bit annoyed. I believe that Larson should have lost his drive over it, but I also believe that if a NASCAR champion was doing it, or even someone like Santino Ferrucci was doing it, they get away with it. And that does annoy me. It really does. And it just shows some of the injustice that goes on in the world of motorsport. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I mean, I've made mine perfectly clear here. I've been enjoying a lot of this motorsport hiatus that's been made up by sim racing. And I'm going to look back on it very fondly. But at the same time, these incidents should be treated quite similarly in the simulated world as they are in the real world. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye for now.